Jesus Christ, you are the light of the world, the light of darkness overthrown. Save this mouth, for it is evening, and the day is almost over. Let your light scatter darkness, and shine within your people here. Darkness light, heavenly glory, loving love, awesome grace. You sing creation's story, triumph. can be with you all, and also with you. Let us sing our thanks to God. It is right to give God thanks and praise. Blessed are you, Creator of the universe. From old you have led your people by night and day. May the light of your Christ never darkness bright. And your love and your presence are the light of our pathways. And you are the light and life of all creation. May our prayers come before you, O God, as incense, and may your presence surround and fill us, so that in union with all creation, we might sing your praise and your love in our lives. Amen.
Except I don't like standing, so I'll just sit and we'll talk. Maybe right here. Oh. So I noticed, I think Ellen, we left off at chapter 9 or something. To me, I went into the Pastor Mark and I had talked last week, and there's so much to try and cover in these little half-hour moments of them. Mm-hmm. So, I did look at chapters 9, 10, 11, and 12. There's certain things I think we could really dive into a little bit. And one of the things was the thing about the chapter about air, and she, about air and water, and also her references to St. Augustine and to Thomas Aquinas are really interesting. And this notion of that we are in everything. We're all there. Everything, the land, the sky, the stars, the trees, mortal creatures, everything seen and unseen. And this is what Augustine wrote, "But thee, O Lord, I imagined on every part, environing and penetrating it, though in every way infinite, as if there were a sea, everywhere and on every side. Through unmeasured space, only one boundless sea. And it contained within it some sponge, huge but bounded. That sponge must needs in all parts be filled with the immeasurable sea. So conceived I, thy creation, itself finite, yet full of thee, the infinite." And there's something about then, when she writes about the air, and I mean, these are meditations, right? I mean, if you stop for a moment, and she writes, "Let your imagination play with air and with wind, air in motion." And she brings up wind, breath, spirit of God. The Hebrew word ruach carries the connection between all of them. Something about air in motion points to the presence of God. Ruach, my understanding, after studying some Hebrew literature for a while, it also means the breath of God. Right, so you have the wind. And there are places, I've had this experience, and it's just, I'm not doing personal things, but I was my sister has a place in Montana. It's like 80 acres. And when you stand on the mountain in Bourbon, I know this, and you stand there, and it feels like the wind, in poetry and song, there's this idea of the place where the four winds meet, as if you could hold them in your hand, right? And it feels like that, right? When you're in this perfect place of stillness and there is no noise there, none, right? It's just quiet. Quiet beyond our imagination. You can hear birds flap their wings when they fly by. That's how quiet it is. But that feeling, that presence, I'm certain that's what she's talking about here. And this idea that we are all part of that. I mean, it's hard to get to that place. I mean, I don't know how people feel about that, but it's not an easy thing to wrap your head around.
No, and I think just like Pastor Mark's really marvelous Facebook post on Sunday. He didn't read it, but it's being open to see as we live our lives, being open to see, head down, one foot in front of the other, and I got to do this, and I got to do that, and I got to, oops, and there's this car going to cut me off. I mean, how often am I open to seeing?
Mm-hmm.
Tonight, when we drove here, the clouds and the sun were really spectacular. We head from the east and west, and come west a little bit, so we could see the sun. You know how it goes through openings in the clouds. I don't have any problem with imagining that as the presence of God.
Mm-hmm.
Also, on another trip, I was amazed that I stood with amazement at the Grand Tetons. I mean, what a creation!
Yeah.
All you can do is stand there in awe and go, "What a creator!"
And that because you can do that, right? Because you can, that's the drift, right? I mean, like even standing in Lake Michigan, you have that, right? It's just those moments that I brought something. This was from an introduction to a set of haiku by Maxine Hong Kingston. but the person that wrote the introduction, I thought of a traditional Buddhist meditation practice known as in ancient Pali as metta, which in English is most often translated as the practice of loving kindness. Now that reminded me of her word in here, hesed. She said hesed, and which is a Hebrew word meaning pretty much everlasting love. It is a practice summed up in a foundational mantra-like prayer. May all beings be safe from harm and danger. May all beings be happy. Yes, it is a wish. Yes, it is only a prayer. But to say this to oneself and to practice it, wishing, it may indeed change you. Loving kindness practice has the capacity to nurture and expand the emphatic imagination, or to put it another way, it is a practice in extending the horizons of compassion. It is about the growth of what some might call the soul. I think that's pretty much, there's a Buddhist notion, and I think this is, she says on page 67, whether you're in a city park or watching a flower growing in an apartment box, being in contact with the natural world has beneficial physical and mental effects. A belief in creation deepens these experiences. One can come across God in such places, sensing divine presence in the beauty. Right? So if you take the time, right? And it's also another thing I wanted to share. The physicist Richard Feynman, who one of the quantum theorists and so forth, he once said, that people look at a flower and they can look at it and see the beauty and look at it artfully and so forth. He says, but once you know the science of that flower and what makes it and what makes those veins feed the other part of the flower, it makes it more spectacular. In other words, there again, a deeper understanding.
Everything about this reading reminds me of one line of poetry. The force that through the green fuse drives. It's Dylan Thomas. And I just see the force that through the green fuse drives. It's just, I think that's like being, I don't know, it's just my little mantra that keeps coming back as she points out the specificity of all of it.
And what makes it is the word strive, right? I mean, it works, right? Yeah. Well, yeah. Anybody else, any thoughts on?
Well, I like the idea just of the air, that God is like the air, because like right now, there's air here, but we can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't feel it. But when it's moving, we know it's here. And so at times we're aware of God's presence. Sometimes, like you say, the beauty of His creation. But I'm always amazed at these big airplanes. When you're in an airplane, you certainly are aware of the air because that plane is going down the runway, and it's going to take off. And it feels like a miracle almost because this is definitely air and it can do a lot of stuff. Or if you're in a big windstorm, I mean, air is very powerful. So yeah, God is, I like that idea that we're not aware of God a lot. At least, I'm not aware of God each day, except when we see, what you say, beauty, see the beauty of a child or, new granddaughter right now, or, we become aware of God at times. And so it's interesting but the fact also, I like her analogy that God is, on page 65 there, where she says that God is with us all the time, even in agonizing and suffering and death. There's suffering and death, and God is there to help us. He's the energy that holds out mercy and keeps us going for the next moment, for new life that will heal, redeem, and liberate. So, yes, this lady brings up really some great things, doesn't she, about God and the earth and our but we picture him, as a person. As a person, an old man, or I used to think
right.
as she talks about it, it's the old man that made everything, and then sits back and watches it, go and develop.
But she says that, she did say in that one chapter, right, that that's just not right.
Oh, it's
Right.
It's
no,
not right at all.
There's this continual creation.
Yes.
It's this continual breath.
Yeah.
And do you remember in Bob Bell's study that the term, the Yiddish term or the Hebrew term for God has no vowels?
Yeah.
It's Yahweh. It's all breath. It's
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
And so this is, it's saying God's name in that way. In every moment you're breathing, you're making a prayer of life.
Yeah, and that's that moment at the burning bush, right? And there's these I am, and these.
Yes.
And I'll tell you a great thing. It's something to do with this one. But there's Allen Ginsberg, the poet,
Yes.
once wrote that. How did he say it? I have it here. The only poetic tradition is the voice out of the burning bush. Now you just think about that for a while, but it was just, that crazy old poet. But the only poetic tradition is the voice out of the burning bush. And from that comes all the different poems. And she quotes poets quite often in here. That the one bit by Robert Frost here, verse, the right place for love. I don't know where it's likely to go better. Right? So our relationship to the earth and to all these things is probably the best we're going to get. So.
Johnny has a t-shirt that says, "There is no planet B."
Yeah. We've seen that a lot lately with the protests
Right.
and so forth.
And I think, reminds, it's a great reminder of your responsibility for your home, our home, our space, our gift, this creation that we've been gifted to be a part of. It's not there for only our pleasure, but our responsibility.
Yeah, and she's also asking us to do that more often, right? There's this great bit in the one about fire that ignites. It is unfortunate that teaching about creation has usually focused only on the origin of things, as we were talking a minute ago. It is likewise a shame that when the term supernatural is used, it tends to confine the presence of God to places, times, and sacramental actions that are holy, while everything else is simply natural. This tends to lead to locating the experience of God on Sunday, but not on Monday, in church, but not in the rest of the city or country. Frankly, such a divided world does not exist. The ongoing act of creation puts the living, all-holy God in direct relationship with the whole world, every one of its creatures at every moment, or they wouldn't be there at all. And and then I think it's after that, I forget, but you have the one where somebody imagines, does a thought experiment of putting all these different animals in a room.
Yes.
And they are aware of each other, all in a different way.
Right.
They sense it. I think the woman's called Rebecca, who's in the room.
Right.
But that idea that it is, and we, we're all guilty of it, right? I'm not all day going around.
Right.
Yeah.
Every animal can only tap into a small fraction of reality's fullness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, surely most of you have read Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner by Coleridge. And the magic moment in that particular piece, he's got the albatross, he did a back pay, he's carrying the hill. And all the sailors have died, and he gets to a point where he's looking into the ocean, and he sees all these terrible snakes swimming through the water. And it's the moment when he realizes they are beautiful too. They have value somehow in our lives. And it's at that moment the albatross drops from his neck, and he suddenly is aware of the singing of the spirits and the stars, and everything has come into focus as part of who he is and how the world speaks to him. He has to share it, of course, to everybody and say, oh gosh, there was this old guy went up.
Yeah, but it's right. I mean, that's such a beautiful image. You remind us of it, and that thing that it's his complete awareness.
Yeah.
Right in that moment, he realizes it.
His connection with all creation. He is part of it.
Yeah.
The word with.
With.
The word with was very important as well. Doing it with, not with animals. Jesus went to be with the wild animals. Not reign over them, not anything other, but on the same plateau.
Yeah, so in that subsequent pit, and she starts all of the readings from Isaiah that we read during Advent, and just reading them in this context, so I'm no longer reading this like, oh, do we have a piece of music that goes with this? But what is it actually saying to me? That this width, that this kingdom, this how we will live with each other in God's kingdom. The wolf shall live with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid. The calf and the lion will feed together, and the little child shall lead them. The little child is going to lead the wolf, the lamb, the calf, and the lion. Please let's not put Lily in that position, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not today. I'll not hurt or destroy them. It's just beautiful. I want to know somebody who's got a better memory than me that remembers a composition, a peaceable kingdom. Sang it in high school. Anybody else here? I don't know. Anyway, I've got to look it up because that's this. It's beautiful.
At the end of the 87, in this same, what she's talking about, the practice at the bottom of 86, the practice of seeing this gorgeous world reflecting its author inspires us to honor its intrinsic worth and invigorates energy for its care all the way into the future. Not incidentally, it also bonds us closer to the author of all this beauty. Let this wisdom dynamic have its way with your spirit. Take a moment to gaze at something beautiful, enjoy it, wonder what makes it so attractive. Let its beauty carry you into the presence of the author of beauty. Kind of, I think the idea that she used an author, reminds you when you read a really good book, right? You can go into it, right? You're there. So, yeah.
Winter, we have the opportunity to watch the sunset, the way the angle of the light, when the sun is setting further south, and in our photos, you wouldn't believe the number of sunsets we have taken through screens. No, but it's just, that's
More magnificent than the other.
right.
It's, that's in, the sunrise.
Yeah.
I go to the lake, and I go to the lake, the sun coming up from my bedroom, is actually, the lake that much.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, we do that in a few weeks. Okay, and just-
And I think the wonder of, sunrise at the lake is that tomorrow it can be just as spectacular. Of course, I'm not gonna be here.
Right, right.
But you have the opportunity to see it every day, if only you have the will, the desire.
But it's not just those things. I think she, sunsets and sunrises and mountains, but there's so much. I mean, like even in the paragraph I read before, even if it's just a flower in an apartment planter box, to stop and pause, take a breath, and then think about that. That's all. And then, you'd be okay.
She does
Although in
ask
this
us-
culture, it's really
She
difficult.
likes to ask us to ponder quite a bit.
Ponder, yes.
Ponder is a big word.
Yes.
Ponder this. So that's a nice word.
Yeah. And to learn. I mean, I think that's what Richard Feynman meant, is learn. Go ahead and learn about trees. It's only going to help you explore their beauty more. Learn about these things.
I'm going to study called art of noticing.
The art
Of noticing, and you're just supposed to take time each day. Just to notice. Where was God? Where you were sitting at that moment. And I love the fact that in the part where she talks about the angle vision, she said, he noticed. He noticed the field of flowers. So he himself would take time to notice how beautiful this creation is. And we just don't do that, like you said before, we're just so busy. But we're looking here at the great of this work, that's part of this creation. Just little things like that.
And now it has a history too of all those that have sat here. It's like every time you go to the rail, right, to take communion. I mean, she talks about communion, these sacraments, but I think every time I go there, I think I'm there with all those that came before, family, we're gone. And yet, it's that moment that I am, exchanging the flesh and blood of the Creator or of Jesus, but still, there's such power in that, such beauty.
Yeah, we sort of need the sacraments and church in order to sometimes bring us to God. I mean, when we're out in nature, that we can experience too, that power. But we live our lives daily. We're involved in many other things that we're not really thinking or aware. Just as we're not aware of the air. It's here. We're just not aware of it. So she makes some neat analogies about that. I mean, that we still need church. But then again, she says church should inspire us
To create.
to be aware of that.
Be aware.
As I said, create and not become routine.
And to create, I mean, she talked about authors, she talked about musicians, talks about all these things. You could do that, right? And to be part of creation. Not that you are part of it because you're here, and so forth. But it's I mean, every time you hear music, whether it be classical or jazz or rock, you think, well, these are people creating things.
From something.
From something. Yes, from something.
From God.
Nothing.
From nothing.
Right.
Bill, why do you think she wrote this book? And why is she called a creation theologist instead of, what's her role? What is she trying to do?
I think she wants us to really be aware of the earth. I think this is somewhat of a response to what we're doing to the earth now, and so forth. I mean, she does at a few points get a bit, what some would call radical about what we need to do, what we need to protest, what we need to reconsider. But I think it's also a way of, I don't know that I have so many friends who are spiritual, and so they don't go to church. They don't do that. And I even have atheist friends who, but they believe in the earth. They're super compassionate, have a great, steadfastness towards humanity and so forth. And I think what she's saying here is that's the kind of, if we are going to change things and stuff, there has to be more of that kind of, and it's not some sort of 60s thing. We have to have this love relationship with the earth. It seems to me that's the overwhelming sense of this book, is that's what this is.
My understanding is that this is probably the most accessible to the common person text that she's ever written. That she's more of a theologist, more of a scholarly theologist than this type of writing. So
because if you look at the people she quotes, Aquinas, Augustine, that's really hard to read. I had to do it at college, and it was like, what? It's a chore, but she does draw upon them and their thinking. Augustine was what, 300, 400? Yeah, and then Thomas Aquinas, 1200 or 1300. So she draws upon these philosophers and theologians from that time. Yeah, and you're right. It makes it's a bit of a chore, but it's understandable. Mm-hmm. And there's constantly senses where you go, oh, maybe start finding that way. Oh, okay.
Yeah, she says in her introduction that our beliefs have consequences, and I think the general idea of God needs a little work. She kind of talks about, and that made sense to me, that our Western, the way we practice religion, in the last 2,000 years, it's sort of changed and it's become very formalized, and a certain belief system and a living for the next life instead of this life, and an understanding that God is intimately involved with all of his creation, and that we should be too. Yeah, so you're right. She's getting the ecological message that Christians haven't really preached too much, and I guess that's kind of what she's saying too, is that it's we need to kind of re-examine what Jesus was all about too.
we took the meaning of the word dominion into domination, right? Instead of responsibility with.
And I'm sure, I haven't gone as far as next readings are about Jesus, and I would assume, that maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, is that's going to include more of relationships to each other.
Yes.
And the life that we have.
Yeah, and Jesus is compassionate. We sometimes miss that. Certainly some of the evangelical churches just want to accept, are you saved? And are you invited, have you accepted Jesus? They get it too formalized, and that's why I didn't like the real evangelical churches. And it was too personalized, and this was caring more about our neighbors and our earth.
She starts talking about Jesus always being aware of the periphery. Mm. So whether it's Zacchaeus in the tree, it's the woman in a busy synagogue, and she's over there, all bent and crooked, and seeing the people on the periphery.
No. Okay. So that's what he thought to read.
Yeah, Jesus notices her,
water trough on the Sabbath. It's kind of his response.
Okay. I think we did good. Anybody go? Well, we did. That was fun.
Thanks, Bill.
Oh, yeah. Oh, take on that responsibility. I get paid overtime.
We're gonna see that you get an increase. Yeah.
The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness is not overcome it.
Angels
merciful God, source and ground of all goodness and life, give to your people the peace that passes all understanding and the will to live your gospel of mercy and justice through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. God, remember us in your love and teach us to pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your